Okay, everybody, this is a study guide for Unit 5. This would cover more than 50% of your test. I would say probably around 60 or 70. The remaining that's not covered here would be things like meiosis, chromosomes, the differences between meiosis and mitosis. You have things like non-disjunction, trisomy, monosomy, some of the conditions when non-disjunction happens, like Klinefelter, trisomy 21, Turner syndrome. Then also you have material like epigenetics, linked genes, and environmental impact on phenotype. But a lot of what your test will be on this material. So let's go ahead and begin. There are, let's see, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, 15 pages, but it's really not that tough if you know what you're doing. So let's go and check to make sure you know what you're doing. Here we go. For each genotype, indicate whether it is heterozygous or homozygous. If it is homozygous, indicate dominant or recessive. Here we go. We have homozygous dominant, heterozygous, heterozygous, homozygous dominant, heterozygous, 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 homozygous dominant, heterozygous, 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 homozygous dominant. Knew I was going to mess up one. Heterozygous, heterozygous, and heterozygous. Number 2, for each genotypes below, determine what phenotypes would be possible. Purple flowers are dominant to white. So this would be purple, purple, white. Round seeds are dominant to wrinkled seeds. Round, round, wrinkled. So this is displaying a dominant pattern of inheritance. Brown eyes are dominant to blue. Brown, brown, blue. Bobtails in cats are recessive to longtails. Long, long, bobtail. You got to be sure you read the question right. It says bobtails in cats are recessive to longtails. Okay. For each phenotype below, list the genotypes. Remember to use the letter for the dominant trait. Straight hair is dominant to curly. Straight. That's homozygous dominant. Heterozygous, homozygous recessive. Pointed heads are dominant over round heads. Homozygous dominant, heterozygous, homozygous recessive. 4, set up Punnett squares for each of the crosses listed below. Round seeds are dominant to wrinkled seeds. It does not matter where you put a parent. It'll all turn out the same in the end. What percentage of the offspring will be round? Now, I want to clarify that. What percentage of the offspring are expected to be round? We would say 50%. And that would be these two. Okay, there's page 1. Let's move on to page 2. Give me one moment. All right, let me be sure I'm sharing this screen properly. Good, okay. Page 2, or B. A homozygous round-seeded plant is crossed with a homozygous wrinkle-seeded plant. So round is dominant to wrinkled. So if it's homozygous round, it's homozygous dominant. And if it is homozygous wrinkled, it's homozygous recessive. It's like 100% are going to be heterozygous, 100% are going to be round. In pea plants, purple flowers are dominant to white flowers. So purple, and white. If two white flower plants are crossed, what percentage of their offspring will be white? So it looks like we're going to have homozygous recessive crossed with homozygous recessive. That would be 100%. You cross two whites, they're going to be white. A white flowered plant is crossed with a plant that is heterozygous for the trait. So this parent here is homozygous recessive, and this parent here is heterozygous. What percentage of the offspring will have purple flowers? It looks like it will be these two. That would be 50%. And I don't like how it says will. I'd rather they say is expected to have. Working.
I'm sorry, I have to drop off some.
Just send them on the table. Two plants, both heterozygous for the gene that controls flower color, are crossed. So we're going to have heterozygous crossed with heterozygous. What percentage of their offspring will have purple flowers? Looks like it's going to be 75%. And white flowers, 25%. Number 12, guinea pigs. The allele for short hair is dominant. Okay, so short, we'll have that. And long hair is recessive. What genotype would a heterozygous short-haired guinea pig have? Big H, or big allele, little allele. What genotype would a pure-breeding short-haired guinea pig have? That would be homozygous dominant. And what genotype would a long-haired guinea pig have? That would be homozygous recessive. There's really nothing that you need to do with the Punnett Square, so don't worry about that. Okay, that is page 2. Let's move on. Page 3, or page C. Oh boy, all right. Set up a Punnett Square using the following information. Dominant allele for tall is capital D, dwarf is recessive D, dominant allele for purple is W, big W, recessive is little w. Cross a homozygous dominant parent with a homozygous recessive parent. All right, so this should not be too tough. The only type of alleles that could be produced are all going to be dominant. Then we have the little one, the dwarf, and the white one. Okay, guys, I'm going to tell you what. This is going to be the same all the way through. It's going to be double heterozygous all the way through. When you cross a homozygous, a pure homozygous dominant with a pure homozygous recessive, it's going to be all the way through. It's going to be heterozygous all the way. What probability of producing tall plants with purple flowers? 100%. What are the possible genotypes? Heterozygous, heterozygous. What is the probability of producing dwarf plants with white flowers? 0%. Those possible genotypes would have to be double homozygous recessive. What probability of producing tall plants with white flowers? 0%. That would either have to be homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, or heterozygous, homozygous recessive. And what is the probability of producing dwarf plants with purple flowers? 0%. That would have to be homozygous recessive, heterozygous, or homozygous recessive, homozygous recessive. Okay. Number 3, set up a Punnett Square using the information. We have dominant allele for black fur and guinea pigs is a big B, recessive is white little b, dominant allele for rough fur is big R, and smooth fur is little r. We have heterozygous with a heterozygous. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a little piece of advice. If you ever have a double hetero, crossed with a double hetero, the ratio is always going to be 9 to 3 to 3 to 1. 9 is dominant, dominant. The 3 is dominant, recessive. This 3 is recessive, dominant. And this 1 is recessive, recessive. So I'll go ahead and do the Punnett Square, but I would also recommend you work smarter, not harder. Okay? So do the fur color. That would be 0.75 is going to be black. 0.25 is going to be white. Then if you do the other color, or the other trait, rough and smooth fur, heterozygous, heterozygous, you're going to get the same results. That would be 0.75 rough and 0.25 smooth. Okay. What is the probability of producing guinea pigs with black fur? That would be 9 out of 16, whoops, or 0.5625%. If you did 0.75 times 0.75, that would equal 0.5625. If you multiply 0.5625 times 16, because there are 16 boxes here, you would get 9 out of 16. The possible genotypes for a guinea pig with black fur and rough fur would either have to be homozygous recessive, homozygous recessive, homozygous recessive heterozygous, heterozygous, homozygous dominant, or heterozygous heterozygous. What is the probability of producing a guinea pig with black and smooth fur? So black is the dominant trait, smooth is the recessive. So that would be 3 out of 16, which is 0.1875. So in order for it to have black fur, it would have to be homozygous recessive for fur, and it could be homozygous dominant for the type of fur, fur color and then type of fur, or homozygous recessive heterozygous. What is the probability of producing a guinea pig with white fur and white rough fur? That would be 3 out of 16, which is 0.1875. And the possible genotypes would have to be, you could either have homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, or homozygous dominant, excuse me, not homozygous dominant, heterozygous, homozygous recessive. What is the probability of producing a guinea pigs with white and smooth fur? That is going to be 1 out of 16, or 0.0625. That would have to be, the only possibility would be a double homozygous recessive, a double mutant. Okay, so there's page C. Let's move on to D. Oops, wrong button. All right, we have more dihybrid crosses. Set up a Punnett Square using the following info. Cross a homozygous dominant parent with a homozygous recessive parent. So this is like number 1. You have a homozygous dominant parent all the way through. So they're going to look like this. I'm going to cross it with a homozygous recessive. So if you set this up, it's going to be heterozygous all the way through. Set up a Punnett Square using the following information. We have, okay, so N's and B's, normal coat, black coat, brown eyes, blue eyes. We have a heterozygous parent with a heterozygous parent. Okay, so that would be double heterozygous, cross with double heterozygous. So you do the FOIL method to figure out the gametes. big N, big B, big N, little b, little n, big B, little n, little b for both of them. So I'm just filling them in. Oops. All right, so there's that. And again, that would be a 9 to 3 to 3 to 1 ratio. 9 out of 16 are going to be dominant, dominant. 3 out of 16 are going to be dominant recessive. So that would be black coat, blue eyes. 9 out of, or what am I saying? 9 out of 16 are going to be normal coat, brown eyes. 3 out of 16 are going to be normal coat, blue eyes. 3 out of 16 are going to be black coat, brown eyes. And 1 out of 16 is going to be black coat, blue eyes. So let's answer these questions. I think I kind of went out of order, but all right. What is the probability of producing purple, starchy corn kernels? So starchy is dominant, purple is dominant. That would be 100%. And the possible genotypes, well, the only ones that we have are heterozygous, heterozygous. What is the probability of producing yellow starchy kernels? 0%. If you really wanted to say, like they ask, what are the possible genotypes to have a yellow starchy corn kernel? That would have to be recessive, dominant. Oops, wrong letters. Let me get these right. That would have to be recessive, dominant, or recessive heterozygous and recessive dominant. What is the probability of producing purple sweet kernels? That would have to be homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, or heterozygous homozygous recessive, but that is 0%. And what is the probability of producing yellow sweet? 0%. That would have to be homozygous recessive, homozygous recessive. Using the Punnett Square in question number 7, what is the probability of producing a wolf with a normal coat and brown eyes? So that's going to be both dominant traits. That is going to be 0.5625 or 9 out of 16. The possible genotypes is going to be homozygous dominant, homozygous dominant, homozygous dominant, heterozygous, heterozygous, homozygous dominant, and heterozygous, heterozygous. What is the probability of producing a wolf with normal coat and blue eyes? That is going to be 0.1875 or 3 out of 16. The genotypes for the normal coat would either have to be, and blue eyes would either be homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, or heterozygous, homozygous recessive. What is the probability of producing a wolf with a black coat and brown eyes? So that's going to be recessive dominant. That would be 0.1875 or 3 out of 16. And the possible genotypes are going to be homozygous recessive, homozygous dominant, or homozygous recessive, heterozygous. And what is the probability of producing a wolf with a black coat and blue eyes? 1 out of 16 or 0.0625. And that would be double homozygous recessive. Any questions? Good. Okay, moving on. Welcome to pause the video anytime and or rewind. Okay, so let's go to page E. All right. A tall pea plant with terminal flowers at the ends of the stems is crossed with a short plant that has axial flowers. All 72 are tall with axial flowers. This is a dihybrid cross with a height and flower position trait showing independent assortment. That means that the traits are not linked to each other. Name the dominant and recessive alleles. A tall pea plant with terminal flowers is crossed with a short pea plant with axial flowers. All 72 offspring are tall with axial flowers. Okay, so we have tall, we have short, so let's say for the height, big T is tall, little t is short. Terminal flowers, let's have big F for terminal flowers and little f for axial flowers. Give the genotypes of the parents. So if you cross these, 1 second. If you cross these and all the offspring show the dominant trait, then that means that the parents must be, one must be homozygous dominant, and the other must be homozygous recessive. Predict the F2 offspring with the tall axial F1s are allowed to self-pollinate. So if you cross these, this is going to make 100% heterozygous. And if you let them self-pollinate, let me change that so you guys can clearly see. It's going to be big T, little t, heterozygous, big F, little f, heterozygous. If you cross those, the offspring are going to be, predict the F2 offspring, 0.5625 will be tall and have terminal flowers. Dominant. 0.1875 will be tall, axial flowers. Dominant recessive. 0.1875 will be short, terminal flowers. That's recessive dominant. And 0.0625 will be short, axial flowers. Recessive. It's always a 9-to-3 to 3-to-1 ratio when you have a heterozygous cross with a heterozygous. Suppose a white, straight-haired guinea pig mates with a brown, curly-haired animal. All 5 babies in the first litter have brown fur, but 3 are curly and 2 have straight hair. The second litter consists of 6 more brown offspring, where 2 are curly and 4 are straight-haired. Assume curly is dominant to straight. What are the genotypes of the parents in this offspring? All right. So suppose a white, straight-haired, curly is dominant to straight. So let's say this is curly and this is straight. White hair is made with brown. All 5 babies in the first layer brown first. So it looks like brown is dominant to white. So we'll say assuming curly is dominant, what are the genotypes of the parents in the offspring? So we have a white, let's read this again, straight-haired. All 5 babies in their first litter have brown fur, but 3 are curly and 2 have straight. Okay, so we know that this parent here, and then we have this one. If it's white, then it's going to be, let's fill these in. It's going to take a second just to figure out. All right, so if it's white, this white parent is going to be, and I put brown twice, didn't I? It's going to be recessive. And it looks like the other parent would be homozygous dominant for that because all 5 babies are brown. But it looks like it's going to be 50-50. Straight-haired, curly-haired. So curly, that should be easy. Curly, or we have straight hair, this guinea pig. So this is going to be recessive. And I would say this brown one is going to be heterozygous because they had babies that had both brown hair and curly hair. So I'm pretty sure that is what the genotype is going to be. The reason why this first parent, the white straight-haired parent, is homozygous recessive for the type of hair is because there were some that were curly, but because she or he, whatever it is, has straight hair, actually, the straight hair is a recessive trait. It says assume that straight is recessive to dominant. And this one is brown curly hair, so it shows the dominant traits for both, but they produced all brown babies, which is going to lead me to believe that the trait for the brown fur is homozygous dominant, or the genotype for that. And then, because they produced 3 that are curly and 2 that are straight, then it must be heterozygous, because when you have heterozygous crossed with homozygous recessive, it's 50-50. Right here. Oop, I don't know why I did that. I guess I can't highlight individual words. Never mind. Okay. What is the probability of getting 2 female guinea pigs with straight hair in a row? Oh boy. All right. So this is going to take some math. To get one individual that is female is going to be 0.5, half and half. Straight hair. Let's see, that is going to be 0.5. So that would be 0.25, just to get a female with straight hair. And then you'd have to do that again, 0.5 times 0.25 times 0.25. And I believe that's going to be 0.0625. Let me double check. Yep, 0.0625. So this 0.5 here is whether it's a boy or a girl, 50%. This right here is whether it's going to be straight hair or curly hair. I know that because for the hair, we have homozygous recessive crossed with heterozygous. When you cross a homozygous recessive with heterozygous, it's 50-50. And so 0.5 times 0.5 is 0.25. There's a 25% chance that you will get a female with curly hair or straight hair, whichever. And you just do that frequency by itself again. 0.25 times 0.25 is 0.0625. So there is a 6.25% chance of having 2 straight females with straight hair. All right. About 70% of Americans get a bitter taste from the substance called phenylthiocarbamide, PTC. It is tasteless to the rest. The taster allele is dominant to non-taster. So let's say this is taster, dominant in, this is non-taster. Also, normal skin pigmentation is dominant to albino. Okay, so normal, we'll do R, and little r, we'll do albino. A normally pigmented woman who is taste blind for PTC has an albino tested father. She marries an albino man who is a taster, though the man's mother is a non-taster. Show the expected offspring of the couple. All right, so I'm going to use this space down here to do my pedigree because that's what this is going to take. So we have a normal pigmented woman who is taste blind. All right. So I know she's recessive for the taster. She's normal pigmented, so I know she has at least one dominant allele. She has a PTC, or no, she has an albino taster father. So that means that she inherited a recessive allele from her father. So let's fix that. There we go. I'm messing you guys up. Let's start over. She is albino, okay? So she's recessive for color. She is not taste blind. So that's going to be a dominant in, but her father is, which means she has a recessive. She marries an albino man timeout, messed up again. She is not albino. A normally pigmented woman who has an albino taster father. Okay, so she's heterozygous. She is not albino, but her father is. She can taste PTC, but her father cannot. No. She's taste blind. So she's recessive. That's her. Sorry for the confusion. That is her. She marries an albino man who is a taster, though the man's mother is a non-taster. So that means that the man has the dominant allele, but he inherited a recessive allele from his mother. There we go. That is definitely them. Show the expected offspring of this couple. Okay, so expected offspring. Here we go. Let's just do two different Punnett squares. So it looks like 50-50. And for the other one, looks like it's going to be 50-50 as well. Okay, so show the expected offspring. All right, so there's a 25% chance that they would have heterozygous. There's a 25% chance that they would have homozygous recessive. There's a 25% chance that they would have homozygous recessive heterozygous, and there's a 25% chance that they would have homozygous recessive. So 25% chance that they will be a taster in normal pigment, 25% chance they'll be a taster in albino, 25% chance they'll be a non-taster in normal pigment, and a 25% chance that they'll be a non-taster in albino. That is for number 11. So I'm going to erase all this so I can make room for number 12. Okay, in pigeons, the checkered pattern is caused by a dominant allele. A plain non-checkered pattern is a recessive allele. All right, so here we go. Pigeons, the checkered will have a dominant A. Non-checkered, a plain, so that's going to be plain. Red is also dominant to brown. Okay. Show the expected cross, or the expected offspring of cross between a homozygous checkered and red bird. So it's going to be homozygous checkered and red. So this one's going to be homozygous dominant for both, and a plain brown one. Homozygous recessive for both. I can tell you right now, 100% of the offspring is going to be heterozygous. And carry out this cross through the F2 generation. So this is the P generation here. It says carry out this cross. This will be F1. I can tell you right now for F2 generation, here we go. Once again, you will have 9 out of 16 be checkered in red. 3 out of 16 be checkered in brown. 3 out of 16 be non-checkered in red, and 1 out of 16 be non-checkered in brown. I can tell you that right now for part A. Carry out the F2 generation cross between a homozygous plain red bird and his homozygous checkered brown mate. All right. I'm working. Hold on. All right, carry out the F2 generation. Carry out to the F2 generation across a homozygous plain red. So homozygous plain red, that's going to be homozygous dominant. And it's homozygous checkered brown mates. So plain would be non-checkered. So there's that. And it's homozygous checkered brown. So it's going to be recessive. Okay, so carry out that cross. So if we cross the color, it's going to be 100% or not the pattern is going to be 100% plain or non-checkered. And if we carry out the cross for color, it's going to be 100% heterozygous, which is going to be red. So that's part B. A plain brown female laid 5 eggs. The young turned out to be 2 plain red, 2 checkered red, and 1 checkered brown. Describe the father pigeon. Give the genotypes of all birds in this cross. Could any other types of offspring have been produced by this pair? Okay, I'm going to clear out some space so I have some room to work. All right, so we have a plain brown female pigeon. So the female in this case is going to be homozygous recessive, homozygous recessive. She laid 5 eggs. We don't know what the father is. We're going to figure it out. She has 5 little chicks. 2 turned out to be plain in red. Okay, so let's figure all these out. If it's plain, then it's going to be recessive, recessive. And if they're red, they at least have 1 dominant allele. So 2 turned out to be plain in red. 2 were checkered in red. So we know they at least have 1 of each dominant allele if they're checkered in red. And 1 is checkered in brown. So it has that 1 dominant allele and 2 recessive. Okay. So here's what we can do, guys. If these babies here and here have 2 recessive alleles, that means they inherited 1 from their mother and they had to have inherited the other one from their father. So the father has 1 recessive A. These babies here, here, and here have dominant A's. Well, the mother does not have dominant A's, so the father must have it. So the father must be heterozygous for pattern. As for color, well, let's see. This baby right here is brown. It has 2 recessive color alleles. It inherited 1 from its mother. It must have inherited the other one from its father. So the father has at least 1 recessive B. And then these babies here, 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 and here all have dominant B's, which means they must have inherited that from their father because their mother does not have any B's or dominant traits for the color. So the father must be a double heterozygote. Once again, the only place that this baby here and here and here and here could have gotten their dominant B from is from their father. And this parent right here, or this baby right here, has 2 recessive B's, 1 from mom, 1 from dad. So there's the color trait. This baby right here is homozygous recessive for the pattern. It inherited 1 recessive allele from its mother. The other one must have come from its father. And then these babies here, here, and here all have a dominant A allele, which they must have inherited from their father. Okay, I'm going to end this video. My class is about to start, and I'm doing this before school, so I'm going to stop here. This will be video part 1 of the study guide. I will post part 2 right after this one.